What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for June 11th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Tuesday edition of the podcast. It is Tuesday, so it's time for a little positivity / motivation. And today's quote is something, I forget where I just heard this, but it really, as they always do, really just struck and really hit me in a different way. And that is, small minds never see the big picture. And for me, that kind of sums up a lot of what we've talked about here on Tuesdays, and just really don't be a small-minded person and see the big picture. And I think in our current society right now, that is part of the issue. Nobody ever wants to listen to anybody. And it goes on both sides, whatever you believe. And there's no conversations, just a lot of yelling. I'm this, I'm that. I don't care what you have to think. And that's a very small-minded way of thinking. And I'm not going to sit here and get into political whatever. But I think a lot of what is wrong today in our society can be solved by just taking a minute and listening and having a conversation and being open-minded. And like I said, seeing that big picture, because ultimately we're all aiming for the same thing. We just have different ways of getting there, and maybe you can find a newfound respect for someone or understand somebody or something that you never understood. And I think it also applies to goals too. Like, it's easy to focus on the details and the everyday and the minutia, but if you open it up and look at the big picture, and I've talked a lot about looking at the big picture, staying the course and things like that, and know that the details, yes, those small little details matter, but at the same time, you need to have your eye on the prize and see everything around it, because maybe there is an easier way to get there. Maybe there is a shortcut, or if a roadblock comes up, we talked about that the other day, take a detour, go around it. So I really like that. Small minds never see the big picture, and I think that is very, very appropriate on so many levels. So just take a minute. Don't be so quick to voice what your opinions are, and just listen. I think so much in every aspect, every relationship, everything can just be solved by listening, whether it's at work, with your spouse, friends, co-workers, whatever. Just listen and never lose focus of that big picture and see everything. It's very similar to the whole you can't see the forest among the trees type deal, but just know that small minds can't see the big picture, and really don't be that small-minded person. Be open, be willing to listen, and be willing to, I'm not saying you have to listen to somebody and then take their opinion, but just listen to them, because you might have a new perspective on where somebody's coming from. We talk about this in my job all the time, because a lot of times, and it's easy, and I used to be this way too as a teacher, it's real easy to think that you're the center of the world, because that you put so much effort and so much into things. But if you take and zoom out somewhat and look at the bigger picture, you don't know what's going on with this kid. You don't know what's going on with this coworker. You don't know what's going on with your friends. And if you ask questions and just listen, maybe you can get a better understanding and make your life easier. So, small-minded people never see the big picture. That is today's Tuesday motivation / positivity. Hopefully it's something you can take away with you on your way throughout the rest of this week. All right, let's start now with a recap of yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, based on his start in London, did Tawan Walker do enough to remain in the starting rotation? 80% of you said yes. That was rather surprising. I thought it was going to be a little bit closer, but I tend to agree. Give him another start to try to work through it. He did start off injured, and you have a big enough lead that it's not going to kill you if he does implode. But I also think you need to keep him on a short leash and have Spencer Turnbull ready just in case something happens. Thank you, as always, for participating in the question of the day. We do have another one, and it is going to be right now. So today is the last day of school for my kids, and we figured we have a little bit of fun today. And as a kid, I think the last day of school was up there as one of the greatest moments of your year. But it got me thinking, where does it rank in the greatest days of the year for a kid? That is today's question of the day. As a kid, which is more fun? The last day of school, your birthday, or Christmas, or is it something else that maybe I didn't think of? Let me know. 267-495-8531. Let's have a little bit of fun here on a Tuesday. My kid's last day of school here at Upper Dublin. What is the best day for a kid? Is it the last day of school, their birthday, or Christmas? Or is it something else that I'm not even thinking of? Let me know what you think. 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. Text me, send me a voicemail, get the answer to that and anything else Philly sports related off your chest. You can also hit me up on social media, Jimbo_Mont at Twitter and TikTok, at Philly Jimbo on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's the best way to stay in the loop for everything. And let's hope continue to spread and grow this thing. I really do. And this is a good example of tying back in with our Tuesday motivation. Trying to see the big picture. I see the big picture, and it's going a lot slower, to be completely honest, than what I thought. However, it's allowing me time to grow and change and do things, and I'm not being small-minded about it. I'm open to feedback and things like that. So continue to like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Tell your family. Let's spread the word. But today's question of the day, what is the best day for a kid? Is it the last day of school? Is it their birthday, or is it Christmas, or something else I'm completely forgetting about? Let me know that as well. 267-495-8531. Get you in on the Back to the Future voice and text line. For me, like I said, I think it was always the last day of school just because there was so much anticipation, and you kind of knew at the end of the day, last day of school, when you got off the bus, it was the longest that you'd have to go before you went back to school. And then June, and then all of a sudden it's July, and you start like, I gotta live it up. And then August is like the Sunday of the summer. But let me know what you think. Maybe it's Christmas, maybe it's your birthday. I know there's a lot of people who birthdays were such a special day for them growing up in their families. Christmas is always a good one for kids. But what was your favorite day as a kid? Last day of school, birthday, Christmas, or something else? All right, I've been telling you about the nickname tournament. Super, super excited to record the Selection Friday show later this week. That is coming on June 21st. And then the tournament itself kicks off June 24th. Looking forward to it. Going to have a lot of fun. 64 nicknames, 2 matchups a day. You decide who wins. What is the ultimate Philly sports nickname as chosen by you, the This Day in Philly Sports History listeners? The selection show on the 21st will release the brackets, break them down, and then you have the entire weekend while I'm out golfing to rip me on how horrible I am at picking nicknames. But that is coming. June 21st is the Selection Friday show. The tournament kicks off Monday, June 24th, and runs through July 25th, where we will crown our champion. All the information you need for the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame is in the description. Tickets, inductees, if you want to be a sponsor, it's still not too late. You can hit me up for that as well. All right. Phillies back in action. They are back in America. Zack Wheeler will take the mound tonight up in Boston for the first game of a 3-game set. And then they're off to Baltimore next weekend. Looking forward to that. And looking forward to seeing how they also respond to playing in London and then coming back here to America. The next quarter poll is coming up soon. To me, that's the All-Star break. I know some people will say June 30th. I like to give those extra 2 weeks in there and wait till the All-Star break. And then we'll see kind of where the Phillies are. And that's where we can start assessing where they are, what they need, what they should do possibly at the trade deadline. But we got a nice little 3-4 week sprint to get to there. So let's enjoy some baseball. Trey Turner is ramping up his recovery. He could return to the lineup this week. I did see that he likely will not have a rehab start. Rob Thompson said I don't know if it's in his contract or because he's got enough years in, that he gets to choose whether or not he wants to do the rehab assignment, and he likely will get right back into the lineup. And Rob Thompson was like, that's fine too. But they do have some decisions to make with Edmundo. Brandon Marsh is ramping up his comeback, as well as Cody Clemens. So we should have a full team, healthy team, relatively soon for the Phils. And that'll be good coming into this little sprint to the All-Star break to see what they do need to go out and get. I will have my eye on Alvarado. I do think it was unfair that folks are like, oh, he's terrible. I mean, he has been lights out, pardon the pun from Brad Lidge, that one start is not going to make or break the season. However, it is one of those things you want to continue to monitor to make sure it doesn't become a larger issue. And speaking of lights out, does lights out Lidge make the nickname tournament? But we'll see what happens. They're in action tonight up in Boston. And one thing I did see, I saw this on Crossing Broad, and it really got me thinking, and it'll be sort of like the bonus question of the day because it was originally going to be the question of the day. What are your thoughts on early morning games when they're over in London, whether it's the NFL or Major League Baseball, the 9:30, 10 o'clock, games? Are you a fan? Are you not? I am occasionally, but it did mess up my flow with yard work and everything. I wasn't able to watch the whole game because it was in the poison ivy bushes. Knock on wood, have not gotten poison ivy yet because I showered immediately after I was done. But I was cutting hedges and just face deep in poison ivy. But I was listening to it. But what are your thoughts? Do you like the 10 a.m. starts? You can hit me up on the Back to the Future voice and text line or social media for that as well. Watching the games, though, I will say there were a ton of Philly Goat t-shirts in that crowd in London. Even on the one podcast I listened to, the Bostonian versus the Book, one of the listeners commented, and I quickly gave a shout out to Ryan at Philly Goat. I'm like, that's my boy from Philly Goat. But he said my favorite shirt I saw from the London series was the Britain Blue, a 13 colony lead. So it was cool to see that like on a larger scale, getting the shout outs. You can get the London or the British Blue, a 13 colony lead from Philly Goat, and you can get it for 10% off by using the promo code Jim Montgomery. Get a Feast Mode shirt, and I don't even know what more I can tell you about the shoes. Just get the shoes. They're super comfortable. But lots of buzz about the British Blue 13 colony lead on the podcast, the Bostonian versus the Book I listened to. So why don't you go help Ryan out, help me out, and buy the British Blue 13. I'll get it out. The British Blue 13 colony lead shirt off of Philly Goat. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off your order, and then buy some shoes as well. All right. Lots of feedback yesterday about the Sixers and whether or not they needed a bench player versus a third star. Lots of people saying, no, they need the third star. A lot of people saying, yes, I agree with the bench. Still time to get your thoughts weighed in on that as we're only 2 games into the NBA Finals. But like I said, personally, I think they need to fill out the role players in the bench and then focus on Joe and Tyrese. So that way, when Joe is not on the court, they're not getting killed. But let me know your thoughts on that. Some Eagles news. After it seemed as though they weren't, the Inquirer reported that the Kelly Green jerseys will return next year. No word on how many games or when, but just know that the Kelly Green is coming back. A.J. Brown, I thought this was an interesting quote and just to me showed the difference in what is happening this year versus what happened at the end of last year. He was talking about Quinyon Mitchell and basically said that Quinyon Mitchell came right at him and said that was a shitty route or that was a horrible route, something along those lines. And A.J. Brown liked it because he's like, I like these young DBs to come in and talking some trash. It makes them some fun. And it does. And if you think about, and maybe it was just me and my group of friends, I don't know, because we still do this. But there's always a lot of trash talking when we would play basketball, whatever sports we were playing. We always talked trash to each other, and it was just sort of the camaraderie and the rite of passage, and made you closer because like if you're practicing with these guys all the time, or like we played the same, like we had the same guys that play basketball all the time, so you knew their strengths, their weaknesses, and everything. You talk trash, and it just makes it more fun. And like I said, maybe that's just me and my group of friends because we're psycho. But I really like this, and to me, that's like one of those little small details that AJ Brown is sort of pulling back the curtain and letting you know what's going on. And I think what that does, though, it makes them want to practice, the vets practice that much harder. Be like, I'm not going to let this young rookie talk trash on me. And I think ultimately what that does is it makes both players better. It makes AJ Brown that much sharper in practice and the other receivers. But then because AJ is, to me, top 3 receiver in the league. And what that also does is allows Quinyon Mitchell to really sharpen his skills against one of the best. And when he's given 110%, and because Quinyon is running his mouth, I think that's great for the team. I'm a big fan of trash talk within reason. But when it comes to things like that, like he basically said that was a horrible route or something and caught AJ's attention, and I guarantee you AJ ran that route a lot crisper the next time, and Quinyon Mitchell is the one that's better for it. So I like where, again, it's only June. I've said this a couple times and try to temper myself and pull myself back, but I really like the direction this team is headed so far from what I've seen. All right, no Michkov update for the Flyers. That, again, I think that deadline is coming up very soon, possibly this week. But there is a little bit of glimmer, I guess you could say, of hope, if you want to even call it that. The chairman and the head coach of the SKA St. Petersburg team, which is Michkov's club over there, both of them have been retained and will be back. And that's important because the chairman was the one that originally said he's open to the possibility of working out a deal with Michkov so he could join the Flyers. He was very vocal on saying that maybe a change of scenery would be good to help him with his family situation. And the head coach was all about getting him support, whether that be in Russia or somewhere else, to help his family through the tough situation of his father being murdered. He does have a good relationship from all. There was a report that him and the coach didn't get along, but both the coach and Michkov kind of shut that down. So the fact that those two guys are back and they seem to be more concerned with Michkov's well-being more so than him playing for the St. Petersburg team, I think that bodes well for him to come over for the Flyers. And I really do think the Flyers have made no indication that he would. The biggest concern, I guess, was that he would go to Lehigh Valley and not play in the NHL. But the Flyers have not made any indications that he would not be on the big club immediately. So I think that also bodes well. Just a little bit of speculation, not saying that this is one way or the other, but it's just little things like that. Maybe there's a little bit of a glimmer of hope that we could be coming to the resolution of this Michkov thing very soon, because now the chairman and the head coach are in place, and they are not vehemently opposed to the idea of Michkov coming over. So we'll see, and we'll stay tuned as that goes. They're getting ready for the draft in a couple weeks with 9 draft picks. Could be even a more pivotal draft for the Flyers this year than what last year was. But again, if Michkov comes over, that really probably will change what they want to do to a certain point. But I truly believe when they say we're sticking with the plan because of how messy it was when we took over, that they're not going to break the bank and steer off course too much because they have the ultimate goal. And it goes back to the whole small minds don't see the big picture. I think Keith Jones and Danny Briere see the big picture, and sure, they might pivot a little bit if Michkov comes over, but I really do think that they're in it for the long haul and they want to build something sustainable, which I am all about. All right, today, let's go back to 1985. And on this day in 1985, the Phillies beat the Mets 26-7 at the Vet. Glenn Wilson went 3 for 6 with 2 doubles, 3 RBIs, scored 4 runs. Bo Diaz went 3 for 4 with 3 doubles, 3 RBI, and scored 3 runs. But the star of the game was Von Hayes, who was mired in a slump. He was benched the 2 games previously due to the slump. He was usually hitting third. This game, manager John Felski put him in the leadoff position, and it paid off as he led off the game with a home run. The Phils then batted around. They ended up scoring 9 runs in the first inning, and sure enough, Von Hayes comes up again in the first inning with the bases loaded, hit a grand slam, became the 22nd player in MLB history to hit 2 home runs in the same inning. However, he was the first to ever do it in the first inning of a game. And since then, I believe it's like 60 players have now done that. Trey Turner was the last Philly to do it August of last year. Brent Work of the A's did it in May of this year. But Von Hayes was 22nd. It has now been done 60 times. And it's crazy to think that 1985 was almost 30 years ago. That's just... Or no, I'm sorry. It's even worse. 40 years ago. Whoo. Wasn't ready for that one on this day. 40 years ago was 1985. For the love of God. But we're at 22, and now 60 players have done it. It's crazy. But for the day, Von Hayes went 3 for 6, 6 RBI, 4 runs, and a walk. Talk about your ultimate slump buster. The Phillies that day also had 27 hits, which tied the team record that was set in 1930. But it was all offense for the Phillies this day as they beat the Mutts 26-7 at the Vet. Von Hayes hit 2 home runs, including a grand slam in the first inning, becoming just the 22nd player to do that in Major League history and the first to do it in the first inning. Too bad it didn't translate to a successful season, as the 1985 Phils were just slightly under 500. It was still that transition from the 83 team to the end of the Mike Schmidt era. But it was all about Von Hayes today, who broke out of his slump in a big way, going 3 for 6 with 2 homers in the first inning. And then finally today, let's take a trip down Phillies Memory Lane. I mentioned Glenn Wilson went 3 for 6 that day. He is our spotlight. He was a right fielder. He was a first-round draft pick in 1980 of the Tigers. He was traded from the Tigers to the Phillies with John Walkenfuss. I had to mention his name just because it's great. For Willie Hernandez and Dave Bergen in time for the 1984 season. All told, Glenn Wilson spent 4 years in Philly from 84 to 87. Was solid. Hit 265, 49 homers, 271 RBI, 111 doubles, though, and 14 triples in just 4 years. Didn't make the All-Star team that year in 1985, where he hit 275, 14 homers, and 102 RBI, added 30 doubles and 5 triples. He was traded before the 1988 season for Phil Bradley, and we talked about that the other day. But Glenn Wilson was another one of those guys that sort of symbolized some of that era for me as a Philly fan, even though he was sort of the tail or the very beginning of it. But I always liked Glenn Wilson. He wore his glasses, just out there in right field. He was one of the guys when we would play wiffle ball that I would say, all right, Glenn Wilson to bat. Like I used to go down through the lineup. But that is today's Phillies Memory Lane Spotlight. Glenn Wilson, right fielder for the Phillies, made an all-star team in 1985 and was just a solid player. Nothing spectacular, but he was far from horrible. And too bad they could not put better players around him, because that team could have taken more advantage of the tail end of Mike Schmidt, his last 3 or 4 good seasons. But Glenn Wilson is today's spotlight. On this day in 1985, Phils beat the Mets 26-7. Glenn Wilson went 3 for 6 with 2 doubles, but it was all Von Hayes going. Von Hayes also went 3 for 6, 6 RBI, 2 homers in the first inning, including a grand slam, becoming the first player to ever hit 2 home runs in the first inning. We'll have more on the Michkov situation as it gets updated. I'm looking for a lot of news to come out of that this week, though. Let me know your thoughts on talking trash. Are you pro-trash, anti-trash? I don't know. I'm all about talking trash, especially if you can back it up and it's going to make the team better. I like it. I like it. I think it's the whole iron sharpens iron. We'll get there. Let me know your thoughts on 10 a.m. baseball and football games. Are you pro, anti, or are you just kind of like, it's a good treat every now and then? Question of the day, though, is what is the best day as a kid? Was it the last day of school, Christmas, or your birthday, or something else I'm completely missing? 267-495-8531. That is the Back to the Future voice and text line. Text me, leave a voicemail, hit me up on social media. Getting pumped for the nickname tournament. And remember, as you go through your week, small minds never see the big picture. So don't be small-minded. Be open and be able to see the whole world view and just don't have your blinders on. It. The Belmont was just last week, and they put the blinders on horses. Take your blinders off so you can see the world around you. It's going to start heating up this week. Summer is here. Wish me luck as the kids get done school. Brings a whole new set of challenges. And if you are a parent and you work from home or you work all summer, you know what I'm talking about. Thank God for day camps. But go out and enjoy your Tuesday. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for June 11th, 2024. I'm Jim Montgomery. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.